as normal, although all parties and that sort of thing have been cancelled. It's a very subdued show. I'm standing right outside the Frankfurt airbase, the Rhein-Main airbase. This is at maximum security alert. We saw that the soldiers were checking for the Air Force were checking every single car going in there. Engines were being examined, mirrors were being used, dogs were being used. Where we're standing now is the nearest that we're allowed to go to the base at present. We're not allowed to stand in front of the front gate. This base is not actually an active base. There are no planes here. It was due to be closed down in 1995, but it was kept going because of the Kosovo crisis. This airbase is actually right next to the Frankfurt airport, so it can take very large planes. There's a runway here, and it can take large cargo planes. If there were to be any operations in Europe, then this base would definitely be used because it can take those planes. So this base could be active again. In terms of what the German government is doing, we've just been hearing from Chancellor Gerhard Schröder. He's expressed his solidarity with America. He's described the act as a declaration of war against civilization, and he's announced that there'll be a 5-minute silence at 10 o'clock on Thursday, and all workers and executives will participate in that. There's a memorial service today with all faiths. That's at St. Hedwig's Cathedral in Berlin. Back to you in Atlanta.
Tom, thank you. John?
The editor of an Arabic-language newspaper published in London says he received a warning 3 weeks ago. He believes the warning came from Islamic fundamentalists close to suspected terrorist mastermind Osama bin Laden. The warning was of a huge and unprecedented attack, but it offered no specifics. The editor says there are several groups capable of such an operation.
It could be a work of consortium of many organizations, Islamic organizations, which they declared war against the United States. You know, the anti-American feeling is very high now in the Middle East and the Muslim world because what's happening on the occupied territories, and many people accuse the United States of actually helping the Israeli and protecting them. So the groups like bin Laden and other Islamic fundamentalists, actually, they would like to come out and say, look, you know, we are targeting the United States. The United States is supporting the Muslim and Arab enemies, which is the Israeli, and we are taking revenge of what's happening. So we learned from sources that, you know, they are really at work to hit American target, but nobody expected that this target will be in New York itself or in the Pentagon. So the place of the attacks was surprising to everybody.
Afghanistan's ruling Taliban are harboring bin Laden. Only hours after the attack, several explosions rocked the perimeter of Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. The United States said it had nothing to do with the Afghan explosions. The Taliban opposition first denied and then claimed responsibility for them. CNN correspondent Nick Robertson is in Kabul to help us sort it out. Nick, what's going on there?
Well, Jonathan, a few hours after those explosions, we were in touch with the Northern Alliance, that is a group of fighters and political leaders controlling the last 5% of Afghanistan the Taliban have yet to gain control of. They told us that they were responsible for those attacks, and shortly after that confirmation, Taliban officials, ministerial officials, also told us that the city had been attacked by the Northern Alliance. They said they were attacked by helicopters firing missiles. Certainly we could see the missiles flying across the city. Certainly we could see an ammunition dump on fire, and also hear aircraft in the air. Taliban officials also tell us today that 2 aircraft and workshop facilities at Kabul airport were damaged. 2 Antonov aircraft, one the national airline Ariana and one a military aircraft, were damaged on the airfield. But certainly from here in Afghanistan, what happened last night in Kabul was part of an ongoing civil war, spurred on by the fact that a key leader in the north was the subject of an assassination attempt over the weekend. Very unclear if he's still alive. This morning in Kabul, United Nations aid workers have been preparing to leave. They're being reduced to a skeleton staff here, and workers from other international charity organizations, non-governmental charity organizations, have been preparing to leave. Of 10 German groups in the city, we understand that 4 are leaving today, and certainly some of them we've already seen today driving out of their compounds and leaving the city. Taliban, of course, Jonathan, very swift to move in this situation and say that bin Laden was not responsible and that Afghanistan condemns terrorism. A certain amount of apprehension here in the leadership circles about what could happen in the coming days and weeks, and the Taliban very swift to put their stamp of what happened, the responsibility here, very clearly that they are not responsible, they say. Equally, they say they believe bin Laden not responsible as well, Jonathan.
Nick, many people in the United States are calling this an act of war, though they're not naming the enemy who presumably carried it out. Does Afghanistan, does the leadership there feel like it's being drawn into a war? Are they preparing for one?
Well, when asked about that last night, Taliban Foreign Minister Wakil Ahmed Mutawakil was clear. He said that Afghanistan had not been directly accused yet, and he said that it was not necessary for Afghanistan to take any precautions, such as to go on a heightened state of security alert, secure airfields and other such areas. He said that wasn't necessary at this time. Afghanistan and bin Laden, he said, had not been accused openly. However, they are very concerned about the situation right now, Jonathan.
Nick Robertson in Kabul, thanks very much. Relita?
John, for more analysis now, we're joined by Magnus Ranstorp, who's the Deputy Director of the Center for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence at St. Andrews University. Mr. Ranstorp, thank you very much for joining us. Your thoughts on who could have carried out these attacks?
Well, it's perhaps too early to say right now who would be responsible for the attacks. It could be a combination of a consortium of groups. It could be possibly state involvement. But I think most of the money, most of the attention is focused on bin Laden. Perhaps not him personally, but many of his lieutenants and his network of followers that are distributed all around the world. His organization is truly a multinational enterprise with not only followers from many different nationalities, but also have financial infrastructure all around the world. And there has been a massive intelligence-led effort ever since 1996, when he declared an open war against America, to try to track down not only him and his followers, but also his financial assets.
Where did intelligence fail in this case?
The organization, given the fact that they have fought the Soviet, or members of the organization have fought the Soviet Union for over a decade, they are well skilled in guerrilla techniques and in terrorism techniques. They understand how the West gathers intelligence. They have therefore avoided signals intelligence in terms of using satellite phones and so forth that figured previously in some of the information we have about bin Laden himself. The United States and other intelligence agencies have a great difficulty, given the decentralized nature of the organization, in being able to infiltrate it. Many of the followers we are unaware of in terms of their nationality, and therefore most governments, most intelligence agencies do not have lists of these operatives. However, there are certain nationalities that have figured at the top end of the core of bin Laden's and Al-Qaeda as an organization. Those being principally Egyptian, but also Algerian, particularly following Al-Qaeda's ability to infiltrate the armed Islamic group in Algeria in 1997-98 and set up an infrastructure in Europe.
You're certainly pointing out to the complexities of the post-Cold War era, where it is very difficult to pinpoint terrorist attacks.
Yes, it's very difficult because you you have individuals, groups that can overcome asymmetry of power using very conventional, yet, as we have witnessed yesterday, through very conventional means, simple means, cause catastrophic mass casualty events.
Mr. Ranstorp.
And we are...
Yes, finish your thought.
And we have been facing a new kind of terrorism, a faceless enemy that does not claim any credit anymore, that is interested in retribution, that is interested in mobilizing forces against the dominance of the West and the United States in particular. And in particular, vis-à-vis bin Laden, over the issue of continued U.S. presence in the Gulf. He have advocated and mobilized and tried to use the issue of Jerusalem as a cause to get more popularity. And of course, the Iraqi population suffering under the sanctions.
Mr. Ranstorp, thank you very much for speaking with us. John.
U.S. financial markets, including the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq, will remain closed Wednesday. In Asia, markets fell decisively right from the open. Richard Quest has the latest now on Asia and European trading as well. Richard?
Yes, indeed, Jonathan. The markets in Asia pretty much followed the trend that had been seen in Europe. Of course, there was no trading in the United States on Tuesday, so it was really left to Europe and to Asia to give the financial world's reaction to what was being seen. There were very sharp reduction in values. Tokyo was off some 6%. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index down 8%. At the moment, we're seeing something of a turnaround. We'll get to that in a second. Across the financial world, central bankers have been trying to talk confidence into the market. The Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, the US Fed, they've all said that they stand ready to add cash, to add so-called liquidity to the market. That can be in the provision of cash to ATMs for people withdrawing money out of panic, or to companies who are suddenly finding themselves in a credit crunch. OPEC has said it also stands by to provide greater supplies of oil in the event that prices should exceed supply. That would be, of course, very bad for the world economy, and there had been fears that the rise in price which you saw in the last 24 hours would continue. It doesn't seem to be at the moment. Overall, all financial agencies, all central banks are aiming to build confidence in the world business system, as Bob Hormats, the vice chairman of Goldman Sachs, explained.
G7 particularly have to work together to restore confidence by showing that they're working together on this. It's not just one country, it's the overall financial world that needs to have confidence restored, and the G7 leaders need to do that together.
And to that end, they will take whatever measures they deem necessary, cutting interest rates, providing money to the markets. The European markets are open. We'll now catch up with what's been happening. Liz George is at the London Stock Exchange with an update. Liz George.
Richard, thanks very much indeed. It's extremely sombre here in the city. In fact, there's an eerie quietness. Normally, on a morning at this particular time in the morning, you see the streets very packed, commuters coming into work. Today, the streets are extremely quiet. There's hardly any traffic around, just a few people walking into work. And one of the most extraordinary things, of course, as well, is that there's not even any aircraft noise. Now, the city is normally in the flight path, and of course, there are no aircraft coming across either. So there's an awful lot of quietness. A very, very sombre feeling here. The links between the financial markets here in London and the financial markets in New York are extremely strong. And traders, investors, people in the city really thinking very hard about their colleagues, their co-workers, their friends in New York that perhaps are missing, that they haven't heard from. So there really is a great deal of quietness, and that's pervading onto the trading floors as well. Extremely sombre, very light trading. People really waiting to see what's going to happen. Trading rooms extremely empty today. I was talking to one analyst earlier on, Jeremy Batson of NatWest Stockbrokers, about the mood yesterday when this news actually broke across the trading floors. And he was saying there was a huge feeling of panic, just a gut reaction, a massive amount of selling going on. But he was saying that as people begin to take time to think about it, then the markets are going to come back slightly. And that's what we've seen them doing today as people just digest this mood. So the markets at the moment are rising slightly, but they've been wavering all over the place. Now let's go to Maggie Lake in our New York bureau.
Liz, hi there. As you can imagine, everyone here is still reeling from the news today. We won't find out how markets react. All financial markets are closed in the United States. For many companies, their first concern, especially for those in New York and the lower part of Manhattan, are making sure that all their employees are accounted for. We've seen some companies running banners on the news stations across the bottom asking their employees to call numbers to make sure that they get a final head count. You know, personal safety is going to be the first concern here. There are a lot of worries about what this will do to consumer confidence. We were already having many fears